So when you're about to start airbrushing, I would definitely recommend you get everything you're going to need lined up and ready to go, so that when you've got paint in your cup, you're not scrambling around looking for tissue paper or cleaner fluid or anything like that. So what I like to do is I like to get my airbrush ready in the paint station. I got my 2 tubs here of cleaner. I've got my airbrush cleaner and IPA or rubbing alcohol. Got them open, ready to go. I've got my paint here in the dropper tube. I'm going to be using this Vallejo Game Air, and I'm going to be painting the Imperial Knight. I've got the plate mail metal surface primer here, which I'm going to start doing all the metal parts on the Imperial Knight with. So I like to give that a good shake, a good roll around, and also like to get some tissue ready for if I need to do some cleaning quite quickly on the airbrush. And here we've got our Imperial Knight. It's just been undercoated in Games Workshop Chaos Black to start with. So here we go. So first thing I like to do is just, because this model's been sitting undercoated for a little while, I'm just going to give it a nice little clean off with the airbrush. So no paint, just air. Just blow any dust that might have accumulated in the edges. That's good for me. And so I'm going to be painting this Imperial Knight sort of Death Company color scheme. So it's mostly going to be black with red and some white trim, and obviously all the sort of interior of the Knight's going to be metal, like the metal gun. The back here, there's a lot of metal there. So I'm going to start by putting down a silver surface primer over the large areas, and I don't need to be too neat here because I'm going to come back in and do all the black and so on afterwards. So it's just to get into all the nooks and crannies, just get that silver down. So I give my paint one more roll and shake here. So I'm at about 30 psi on the compressor, which is okay. And I'm using the 0.4 needle, which is good for sort of base coating and stuff like that. So I'm just going to put a few drops into my cup. And then I'm going to give that a little bit of a stir because it's silver. It hasn't really mixed too well, it seems. So if you get any separation, it's good to just mix it back up. And then I'm going to start airbrushing onto the model. That's looking quite nice. There's a base silver anyway. Just going to come at it from a few different angles. Don't mind leaving a little bit of shadow here and there. This is one of the beauties with the airbrush, you know, you can just get so much coverage quickly. I mean, I don't recommend using airbrush as a style of painting, but as some other people have said, you know, as a time saver, it's really good. Get a few more drops in our cup. So I don't want to overdo the silver here because it's meant to be a death company. So see, I just put a bit of IPA in here, flush it through my paint station. Let's just see how that looks after it dries. So I get a bit of tissue and just wipe off the nozzle. And then I'll get some more IPA or rubbing alcohol, put that through it. Now a really good technique here, and a lot of people who airbrush do it, is back flushing. So once you've got rid of your excess paint, it's a good idea to just cover the nozzle and then let it bubble through. Don't know if you can see that on the camera, but it starts bubbling and it just gets rid of any particles or solids that have accumulated in the mechanism. So you want to tip that because you don't want any of them bits going back into the nozzle. Give it a bit of a clean and then go back in again with the IPA and just flush through. So what I've found with airbrushing is most of the time you spend actually cleaning the airbrush. The actual spraying the miniature is the small part of the job, and it can be quite frustrating when you first start airbrushing and you don't understand how the mechanism of the airbrush works completely, and some of the things to avoid and you know, the best practices and stuff. You can actually spend a lot of time with blocked nozzle and just playing around trying to get your airbrush to actually put paint on your model. So that's pretty much it for the silver. I don't think I'm going to need to put another coat in there. Now what I might do is come back in with a brighter silver after this dries, just to sort of give it a highlight. So let's do that. So the next color we're going to use here is just a Game Air silver. That's what it's called, just silver. There's nothing fancy about it. So we're going to get a couple of drops of that, put it into our brush. This is just to give it a nice sheen, because this surface primer silver is slightly dull. And we're just going to sort of hit over the top areas of the model. Give a nice bright sort of tone to it. Couple more drops. Get the top of the gun here. And I think that's it. I'm not going to overdo it here, so just going to clean up the brush and let that dry. I tend to back flush every time I clean the brush, so I think it's good practice. I mean, this rubbing alcohol is so cheap, you really don't have to worry about saving it. Just use it as quickly as you like. So let it bubble again. And then just tip. See how like silvery stuff comes out, paint, and then give it a rub. inside the cup, get rid of any excess there, and then put some more IPA through it. See, I give it basic clean like this when I'm going in between paints, but before I leave the airbrush I always give it a thorough clean, which isn't what I'm doing now. This is just the basic clean just to get most of it out. So if you want to continue painting with another color, I would go ahead and you know, put the other color in the cup. Okay, so next let's get onto the black. Okay, so next we're going to paint the black Death Company, all the major large surface areas, panel areas on the Imperial Knight. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this Tamiya paint, which is rubber black. Now, Tamiya paints, they're a slightly different type of paint than the water-based Citadel, Reaper, and P3 and so on. They're mainly for like aircraft models and stuff like that, but they're really, really good for like the finish you get on them is very good. You've just got to be really careful about thinning them down and cleaning and so on, because they're not water-based, they're solvent-based. It's best to mix them with their own brand thinner. There's two types. There's either a lacquer thinner, or there's this other type. It's called X20A. This stuff's a bit more friendly. The lacquer stuff's meant to be better, but this is sort of more friendly to use in the house and so on, and it's just less hassle. So what I've found is a good mix is to just basically get a brand new tub of this, and you can see it's not completely full. You then just get a little dropper bottle. It's a good idea to buy a bag of these dropper bottles. They're really cheap, and you can use them for whole loads of things if you're airbrushing. And then I'll just take this X20 and I'll fill up the Tamiya pot to the top, which I find is a reasonable ratio. I know some people do more, some people do less, but this works for me. So just fill that to the top, almost there. That'll do nicely. And then stick the cap on and give it a good old shake. Also get my little Tamiya paint stirrer here. Give that a nice little stir around. I think Badger do like an electric paint stirrer. I've never used it. Seems a little gimmicky to me, but I don't know, maybe if one of you guys has used it, maybe you can comment below and say whether it's worth a buy or not. So that's it. So next I'm just going to do the black from the top here, just to get the main plates covered. There's other plates on his feet and under his arms and stuff that I can just get in with a brush. So I'm using this airbrush really as just a time saver and to get a nice smooth coverage over the large areas, not really for anything else. So, you know, I certainly am not planning on finishing this model with airbrush, because personally I don't really like the airbrush style of painting. I like brush painted models. I think airbrushing gives some nice effects for like OSL and things like that, but if you leave you call your model finished after just airbrushing, personally I think it looks airbrushed. It doesn't look very nice. Even on the larger models, it just doesn't have that nice effect for me. So I'm just using this just to cover the large area. So we've got our paint ready. So we're just going to get our little dropper that we used before, and we're going to use that to carry paint over into the airbrush. So now I've just used tissue to mask here, and I've not even stuck it down because I'm not being particularly neat. I'm not even concerned really if I do get some black on silver parts. I mean, the brush can sort out anything, any issues there, so that's not a problem. So I'm going to get a couple of drops of black, fill my cup, or get quite a lot of paint in my cup. It's also a good idea to test your spray before you actually put it on the model. So I do this sometimes. It depends how confident I am in how the paint's going to come out, but it's a good idea to test it on a bit of cardboard beforehand. Okay, so here we go. We're just going to come over the top of the model with this rubber black. Give it a nice thin, even coat. Like I said before, I'm not really bothered if I overspray. I'm not trying to be neat. I'm just trying to cover the large areas. It's good to have a turntable for things like this as well, because it just helps you. You don't have to sort of move the model around with your hands too much. So get a nice coat of this rubber black on there. I think with the Tamiya paints, they take a little longer to dry than Citadel or Vallejo as well. So once I'm done this, I'll give it a good amount of time before I go back in there. So just getting them edges that the silver overspray went onto. Just a little bit more black here. I love the Tamiya finish. It's like, it's much nicer than Vallejo and Citadel, in my opinion. Their formulation, I guess, is because they've been going for so long making these paints for painting sort of aircraft and boats and things that have large areas anyway. They've kind of perfected getting a smooth, and they're actually designed for going through an airbrush. Well, I certainly wouldn't recommend brushing on Tamiya paints. They're not designed for that, and they look really ugly. Wow, I'm quite impressed with that actually, just looking at it now. See, the rubber black, it's not like a normal black coat. It's kind of a very, very matte black. I think this paint's actually formulated for painting rubber tires, so it's not surprising, but I think it looks nice. So I'll just put a bit of IPA through my brush just to make sure that it doesn't dry up on me. I also like to leave a bit of IPA in the airbrush in between doing things, just to help it, you know, not solidify there. So as you can see here, we've got most of the areas underneath are covered in silver, which is what I wanted. I mean, that's a massive time saver just there. Like, to go over all of that with a brush, you could do it quite easily, but it just takes you a long time, and you might not necessarily get as smooth effect as you've got with airbrush here. So for me, this is really where painting the model starts, and this is, you know, the great value in the airbrush. It's just a big time saver. So that's pretty much it for the airbrush. So next, I'm going to take this inside, and we're going to do some brush work and get this up to scratch. So I'm quite excited about this model. I think Death Company Imperial Knight is going to look really cool with the rest of my Blood Angels. So that's pretty much it for the airbrushing. So thanks for watching, guys, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe below, or check us out on tabletopminis.com, and yeah, we'll be doing more of them. So thanks for watching.